Did you have a good Thanksgiving, friend? Now it's time to settle in, isn't it? Go ahead, get cozy. Maybe grab a blanket or a warm cup of tea. The world outside can wait for now. Tonight, let's leave the worries of the day behind and wander into a story, one made just for nights like this. This is a tale about Thanksgiving. Not just the food or the traditions, but about something deeper. It's about the people who shape our lives, the ones we hold close, even when they're far away. So, take a deep breath, let the warmth of the moment wrap around you, and listen closely. Our story begins on a cold November evening, at a table waiting for its last guest. It starts at the dining room of the old Riverton farmhouse, glowed with the warm light of candles and a crackling fire. Outside, the wind howled, carrying the faint scent of winter on its breath. Every inch of the table was covered in food: golden turkey, buttery mashed potatoes, glistening cranberry sauce, and pies lined up like a sugary army. But the chairs surrounding the table were empty, except for one. Eleanor, a sprightly woman in her early 60s, sat alone at the head of the table. She wore her favourite burgundy sweater, and her silver hair was pulled back in a loose bun. This was her first Thanksgiving alone since her husband passed 2 years ago. At least, that was the plan. As she lifted her glass of wine for a solitary toast, there was a sudden knock at the door. Eleanor frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. She debated ignoring it, but the knocking persisted, louder this time. When she opened the door, a tall man stood on the porch. His coat was patched, his boots scuffed, and his face was obscured by the shadow of his wide-brimmed hat. He looked out of place, like someone who had wandered straight out of a bygone era. "Sorry to disturb you, ma'am," the man said in a deep, gravelly voice. "I was passing through and saw the light. I've been walking a while and thought I might ask for some warmth, and maybe a bite to eat." Eleanor hesitated. She wasn't accustomed to strangers knocking on her door, and something about the man unsettled her. Yet his eyes, shadowed as they were, seemed earnest. The kindness her late husband always encouraged tugged at her heart. "Well," she said after a moment, stepping aside, "it's Thanksgiving after all. Come in before you freeze." The man tipped his hat in gratitude and stepped inside, bringing with him a gust of cold air. He removed his hat, revealing a weathered face framed by silver-streaked hair. As he settled into a chair near the fire, Eleanor set a plate before him, piling it high with food. "Thank you, ma'am," he said, digging in. "I haven't had a meal like this in years." Eleanor sat across from him, watching as he ate. "You're welcome. You're travelling alone, I take it?" The man nodded between bites. "Been alone for a long time now. Lost my wife a while back. My boy, too. Didn't feel much reason to stay anywhere, so I've been wandering ever since." Eleanor's chest tightened. "I'm sorry for your losses," she said softly. I know what that's like. My husband passed 2 years ago, and it's strange, isn't it? How empty the house feels without them." The man looked up, his gaze piercing. The man's smile deepened, warm and familiar. He must have been a good man. Hours passed, and they shared stories of love, loss, and the small joys that made life bearable. Eleanor felt something she hadn't felt in years, a sense of connection. As the fire died down and the candles burned low, the man stood. "Thank you for the meal, Mum," he said, slipping his hat back on. "And for the company. You don't have to leave," Eleanor said quickly. "It's cold and the roads are dark." But he shook his head. "I've got to keep moving." He paused at the door and turned back to her. "You'll be all right, Eleanor. You're stronger than you know. And you're not as alone as you think." Her breath caught. How do you... But before she could finish, the door closed behind him. Eleanor hurried to the window, but when she looked out, the man was gone. No footprints in the fresh snow, no sign of him at all. Her heart pounded as she returned to the table. There, on the seat where the man had sat, was a familiar scarf, her late husband's scarf, one she thought she'd lost years ago. Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled. That night, she sat at the table a little longer, savouring the warmth of the fire and the memory of her guest. And for the first time in years, she felt a warmth in her heart. Not just for the feast before her, but for the quiet, unshakable truth that the ones we love never truly leave us. They remain in the laughter that fills the air, in the stories we share, and in the love that lives on in our hearts. Happy Thanksgiving. May your day be filled with gratitude, love, and delicious food. Wishing you and your loved ones a warm and joyful celebration. Like and subscribe for more bedtime stories and comment what your favourite Thanksgiving food is.